Welcome back to another Doctor Who Robert Harrop limited edition hand-painted figurine review. Today we'll be taking a look at the most recent release as a part of the Doctor Who line of figurines, and it is of course the classic variation of K9 as seen in the 1977 4th Doctor story, The Invisible Enemy. Now this is limited edition to 250 pieces and was available to order on the Robert Harrop website about a month or so ago. Now due to me moving to uni, this in fact got shipped to my house, meaning there has been a little bit of a delay in delivering this review, meaning that I do believe at the current time of filming this is in fact now sold out. Taking a look at the packaging for this release, I was in fact rather shocked to find out that this box is exactly the same size to all the other figurines that have been released in the line so far, simply because it's K9 and K9 is a lot smaller, but hey, at least it means that the actual figurine itself is protected on the inside of the box. So as per usual, this has been made out of corrugated cardboard, ensuring that the figurine on the inside is in fact protected rather nicely. Of course, at the very front we do get the classic series Doctor Who logo in the rather nice grey typeface. I do believe that this in fact might be the last ever time that we see this box, considering that I do believe Robert Harrop may now be moving to the new Series 11 logo, which is a shame, I must admit. I do think that these boxes are very nice and simplistic and stylish, and certainly actually suit this line very much. I'd be ashamed to see this go if it in fact does happen. And then we of course have the diamond design at the very front as per usual, with the starfield coming off to the side. Sticker in the very middle of the box is exactly the same format to usual, so at the very top we get Who 29 because this is the 29th figure in the series, K9 1997 The Invisible Enemy limited edition to 250, and the 4th Doctor's dates at the very bottom being 1974 to 1981. Of course, at the very bottom we get the Robert Harrop logo along with limited edition hand-painted figurine. On the side of the box we just get the standard as per usual, the faded Doctor Who logo along with the title of the product once again, and then exactly the same for the opposite side as well, and a little bit of company information at the back of the box. You have absolutely nothing on the base. The sticker at the top of the box features exactly the same information to usual, along with the limited edition unique number for this piece being 251 out of 250. Upon opening the actual box itself, I was really happily surprised by the amount of bubble wrap on the inside, ensuring that the actual figure is of course safe within transit, which something this time round did in fact concern me, due to the delicateness of the tail as well as the ears on the very top of the head. There is a lot of parts that could possibly snap on this figurine, so it is really nice to see that Robert Harrop has taken extra precautions, adding more bubble wrap and of course these weird little things in order to keep the figure safe. So here we have the Robert Harrop limited edition hand-painted figurine of the classic series variation of K9 out of the box, and I must say I am in fact rather impressed with this release. I do think that it is very different from the previous releases that I've reviewed so far in the Robert Harrop series, of course because it is a robotic dog as opposed to a normal humanoid, which is something that I'm normally used to reviewing. However, at the same time I am in fact really impressed with how this figure has came out as a result, because originally I was quite worried that the proportions were a little bit off. I did in fact think originally on the promotional images that the head did in fact seem to be a little bit out of scale when compared to the actual body. It seemed a little bit too big in proportions, and I did also think that the ears might have been a little bit too big as well. However, upon opening this figure and actually having it in hand, I am in fact rather impressed with it, and once again Robert Harrop have not lived down with their high quality paint apps, as once again they are shining on this figurine, making it look incredibly impressive. Starting off for detailing by taking a look at the head, once again this has been really nicely recreated and does look a lot like the on-screen prop. So supposed to start off with, we do have the eye section at the very middle that has just been recreated by using the standard bars that we tend to see on the majority of K9 merchandise. This has been rather nicely sculpted on, and I do also like the way that we have the sensor there in the very middle. This of course doesn't extend or anything like that because this product has been made of resin. It is therefore a statue figurine and doesn't really have any special features of that sort, of course, which is something that you do come to expect. This section has also been really nicely painted. In the very middle we do get a rather nice red colour, and then this spreads out to the side to almost have an orange tinge in there, and then the very ending of these sections have in fact been really nicely painted into almost a black colour to make it look like the LED on the inside of the head hasn't completely spread to the side of the eyes, which is very nice and once again recreates a rather nice amount of detail that the on-screen prop did of course have. The snout and muzzle section of K9's head has also been really nicely recreated. Of course, we get this nose section in the very middle that has in fact been raised up from the actual sculpt. This almost looks like a separate panel that has been created. And then we of course have the gun section there, the barrel of that protruding from the nose itself, much like once again how the head did actually have in the original show. And then of course at the very end of the head itself we do have the gun, and the barrel of this has been really nicely both painted and sculpted with a silver paint tap added over the top to really nicely make it stand out. At the very top of the head, of course, we do have the radar dish style ears, which once again have been really nicely recreated. Do have the little spike in the very middle, much like how the actual ears do have within the TV show itself. And I do also like the very intricate details of the wire that actually attaches to the head itself. However, due to the ears in the show actually being made of, I do believe, mesh or something like that, this is something that is in fact really hard to create in a resin figurine format. Therefore, these ears do almost have the appearance of looking rather thick, almost too thick compared to the actual on-screen prop, which is a little bit of a shame, but also something at the same time that really can't be avoided without making the ears too thin. They would literally break off the figurine almost within an instant, so I do see why Robert Harrop have in fact taken this approach. The rest of the head has been painted in exactly the same format to the rest of the body, which I will be covering in a little bit, but overall it does actually seem quite nice and accurate. Below the head itself we do of course get the neck section, which has been recreated with a really nice combination of neck ridges to make it look like a pipe that is of course bending up. This has been painted in a rather nice manner using a dark grey with a little bit of a silver wash on this just to give it a little bit of a weathered detail. And in the very middle we do of course have the dog collar in there as well, which once again has been really nicely recreated to look like the actual classic collar that was seen within the show, using a lot of nice colours including yellow, blue and red, and also a red dotted line that of course feature all the way around this, which is a really nice detail and does in fact add a really nice splash of colour to the figurine itself. Of course feature all the way around this, which is a really nice detail and does in fact add a really nice splash of colour to the figurine itself. Below the collar itself we do of course get the dog tag that has been really nicely painted in a silver colour, along with the actual handle as well, which once again has been painted in a silver paint. Moving on to the sides of the figurine, of course we get the iconic K9 lettering, which once again has been really nicely sculpted to the actual side of the panel. This has been made to actually be raised above the panel itself, and once again this has been painted in a really nice silver colour with a rather sharp paint job. Of course no paint bleeds or anything like this, which is something that you do come to expect from the Robert Harrop hand-painted line. Of course, at the very top of the main part of K9's body, you do also get the computer panel there, which has once again been really nicely painted and raised up above the actual sculpt. So we just have the individual panels at the very top there that have been painted in a rather nice red colour. And then we do get a rather nice combination of buttons there at the bottom also, which range from colours being blue, red and yellow, as well as a little bit of green. And then at the opposite side of K9, once again, we do get another panel that has been rather nicely painted on. We get a black trim around this, which is very nice, and then a slightly lighter shade of grey there in the very middle. I do believe that in the TV show itself, on one occasion, this was in fact used as a computer screen. However, it was never really referred to again, probably because it was too complex to in fact use on a number of occasions. But that is nice that it has been painted and sculpted rather accurately. At the very back of K9, of course, we do get the tail that has been really nicely included. This has just been painted in a standard black colour. However, much like the neck, we do in fact have a little bit of a slight silver wash applied over the top to give the impression of weathering. And then, of course, at the very base of the tail, we do get a number of dishes that have been attached to the lower section of the body just to pad out the tail a little bit more. And then, of course, the aerial tail itself has been split into a number of sections, getting increasingly thin towards the very bottom of the dish there at the very top, much like how K9 does have within the TV show itself. This hasn't in fact been recreated from wire or anything like that, which again, from what I understand, this has been created from resin, meaning that if you drop this at 9 times out of 10, this will of course smash, so do be incredibly careful. It does stress me out a little bit. I think immediately after this review I will be locking it in the cabinet so it is safe, because this figure will be incredibly delicate, especially this section and of course the radar dish ears at the very top of the head. The general sculpt of the main body itself is also very nice, nothing really too different from the other K9s that I have in my collection. Of course we do get this trim around the side there to give the impression of the panel actually being removable, much like how it does in fact occur on a few occasions throughout classic series Doctor Who when the 4th Doctor does carry out a few repairs on K9, a few indentations around the side there, of course some panels at the very bottom of the base as well, which is very nice, and the general overall colour is also quite nice. I think that it is a rather unusual combination between the new series K9 and the classic series K9. It is much more of a silvery colour of grey as opposed to the darker colour of grey. I do believe that perhaps this figurine may be a little bit too light and maybe a bit more like the new series as opposed to the classic series. So yeah, it may have been nice to have a slightly darker paint tap over the top, but I think that generally overall it still looks like K9. You know exactly who it is meant to be. It is quite obvious, and I do think that the colour isn't exactly too much of an issue. And of course, much like all the different versions of K9 that we have seen over the years, at the very base of the figurine itself, do get this rather nice foam trim that has been applied to the very base of K9. And what I do really like as well is compared to the actual base of K9 itself, along the base that the figurine is actually displayed on, there is a little bit of a gap between these, making K9 look like he's almost raised up a little bit, creating a nice amount of shading under the figurine itself, but also perhaps giving the impression of the wheels that would have of course been the function for K9 to move along within the TV show itself. Of course, taking a look at the base that K9 is displayed on, much like all of the other Doctor Who figurines in the Robert Harrop series, this base is in fact completely unique to this figurine and supports a new colour that is in fact nothing like what we've seen before on the other Doctor Who figures, so it is nice to have a little bit of uniqueness in there when it comes to the different bases. This time around you do in fact have this rather nice white design, almost a creamy colour as well to some extent, with some rather nice sort of black flecks in there as well, almost giving the impression of marble or something like that, and then the same for the opposite side. So like this rather nice trim there at the very bottom, actually dividing the grey between the white, once again making it stand out quite a lot when on display. And base I do believe is in fact a lot wider than the previous releases to compensate for the wider base of K9's body. And then of course, much like all the other Robert Harrop figurines, at the very bottom do get this rather nice base with the material on to make sure it doesn't slip and slide when on display. And then we do also have this sticker that nicely entitles that it is a Doctor Who product, hand-painted, limited edition. The unique number once again being printed there at the very bottom, being 231 out of 250. And finally, for this review, doing a little bit of a scale comparison with K9 alongside some of the other Robert Harrop releases from this year, as well as a few years previous, you can quite obviously see that K9 is the smallest figurine in the series so far, which does of course make sense because he is a robotic dog. I think that generally overall when comparing to the second Doctor, he is in fact in scale, he's not too big or anything like that, and of course if you do in fact have the 4th Doctor in your collection, this will be a really welcome figurine to go alongside that figure when on display. And of course additionally doing a little bit of a comparison with the Robert Harrop K9 alongside some of the other K9 pieces of merchandise in my collection, at the very far left we have the Biff Bang Pout bobblehead version of K9 that is also made of a rather similar material. However, you can of course tell that there is in fact quite a major difference between the different paint taps, certainly between this figurine and this figurine. It is very obvious that the Robert Harrop release is a lot higher in market and price because the detailing is a lot more intricate. I think that some of the major places that you can tell that this stands out. Of course on the collar this has a very basic design just with a few bands and things in there. However, the Robert Harrop version actually looks like a proper piece of material. It looks nicely embroidered and has a rather intricate pattern on that as well. The actual colour of this K9 is also more accurate to this version, which is certainly more of a bluey silver. I think that the colour scheme of this one is in fact a little bit of a middle ground between both the new series one and the classic series one that was released in a B&M set. It's not as dark as this version, however I do think that this one might be almost too dark. However, it does also have a little bit of a silvery blue tinge that this one does of course have. So if you're looking for a really nice representation of the classic series version of K9 with a lot of intricate details, then this release is certainly for you. So in conclusion, for the Doctor Who Robert Harrop limited edition hand-painted figurine of the classic variation of K9 as seen in the 4th Doctor 1977 story The Invisible Enemy, I do think that once again this is a rather nice addition to your Robert Harrop collection if you have in fact picked up the previous releases in this series. Of course this is limited edition to 250, and actually at the current time of filming this is out of stock on the Robert Harrop website before the review has even been uploaded, so that is kind of proof that this release has been popular and the Robert Harrop line is of incredibly high quality. And I think that generally overall the message for this review is if you like what you see with the Robert Harrop series before the reviews have even been released, then I certainly recommend pre-ordering your version of this product in order to not miss out. A lot of these releases do in fact tend to sell out rather quickly. Of course the original recommended retail was £65, which is in fact in context exactly the same price as the Mandrill and also a little bit more than the previously released Alpha Centauri, Tetrap and Draconian that did in fact come out in previous years, so you may consider this as a little bit expensive for just a robotic dog considering it is a little bit smaller in scale. But that said, at the same time, if you are a collector of this series you were kind of used to paying the more expensive prices, and if you are a fan of K9 then I certainly recommend adding this to your collection, because even through looking at this right now on the viewfinder, it is possibly one of the most accurate versions of K9 that I have in my collection so far. It'd be nice to see the colours improved just a little bit to make it look a little bit more accurate to the classic series, as I do think that it still looks a little bit more of a new series colour palette as opposed to a classic series 1970 version of K9, but it is still a nice addition to the collection nevertheless. That is that for this review of the Robert Harrop K9. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have any questions about this release then please do leave them in the description below and I will reply to them at some point in the near future. Do of course stay tuned for more Doctor Who Robert Harrop reviews in the future. I do believe the next review in this series will in fact be the Mind Robber Clockwork Soldier, which I do believe is in fact a Christmas release coming out incredibly soon. So yeah, thank you for watching this review and stay tuned for more Doctor Who content in the future. So yeah, thank you for watching. I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.